Welcome to the 9th episode of the Handmade with Heart podcast. On this episode, I interview Shelby from In Aroma. We talk about digital marketing, product photography tips, and the challenges of moving your small business to a new state. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Handmade with Heart podcast. I'm your host, Dana, and I own the small business Scrappy Stitch. Have you ever wanted to know more about some of your favorite small businesses? Follow along as I interview other creative small business owners. We'll talk about getting started, what an average day for a creator is like, tips and tricks, and of course, everything is handmade with heart. Hey, Shelby, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Dana, how are you doing?
I'm good. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us how you got started?
I'm Shelby. I own a business called In Aroma Candle Company. So obviously I sell candles and wax melts and all the good smells for your home. I got started in 2020. So I actually just had my 2-year anniversary
Oh,
of
congratulations.
selling candles. So yeah, thank you. It's crazy. It's kind of feels like it's been longer than 2 years for whatever reason. Obviously, back in 2020, the world was shut down and I was working from home in my, one-bedroom apartment. I got a cat that year because, why not? I was just stuck in home. And I also just started to think about candles. I had made some the year prior for like Christmas gifts for family members. And it was just a fun little side task to do. They weren't good at all. They might have smelled good because I picked good scents, but the actual making of them was not pretty. I have a picture from back then, and it was like I was using to hold up the wicks, I was using pencils and pens.
Whatever works, right?
Yeah. I mean, it got the job done, but I've definitely learned a lot since then. And then in 2020, when the world was shut down, I started to do it more. I wanted to make some more. I had extra time. And I actually had a friend who had started a small business right around the same time. And she was extremely encouraging to me because that got me thinking, oh, could I start a small business? And I really enjoyed the candles. I knew I could probably do a pretty good job with my branding and marketing it, from my job outside of this, which is in digital marketing. So I knew everything I kind of had to do. At that point, it was just like, can I make a product that people are going to want to buy? I went full steam ahead, bought a bunch of supplies, started testing out, what kind of jars I wanted to use, what kind of wax I wanted to use. And I remember being really nervous that my family and friends weren't going to really agree with my decision to do this small business. Like I had a full-time job. I had no financial strain that I needed to make an income on the side. It was just something I wanted to do. But I was worried that, the risk would just be too much and, the chance that I wouldn't be successful, and was just worried about, other people's view of that. Like, does she really think she can run this business? But this was 2 years ago. So I was like,
Yeah.
just a few years out of college, right? So do I know enough about business to create my own? But they were super supportive. Like I did not expect that at all. And that just encouraged me more to give me the confidence that I can do this. So yeah, went full steam ahead and launched in July of 2020. And it's been great ever since.
Very cool. You said you're a digital marketer. How do you use that skill in your small business? And what marketing advice would you give to others?
In my day job, I work in digital marketing, and that was super essential. To be honest, when I was first getting started, I had already known how to kind of build a website. I knew just various marketing elements. I used Shopify for my website, and I had done that in a previous job. So getting my whole website up was super easy because I had that experience. In the beginning, that was super helpful. And then even now, like I put out emails every now and then, obviously social media posts, and I do a lot of that sort of stuff in my day job. So I would say creating it is super easy. I think it's always going to be hard though, just coming up with the content. Like that's always a new brainstorming process, no matter how much experience you have in marketing. But what's really easy for me is I can just whip it together really quickly. Like an email, so easy. Put an image here, put text here, and I know how to schedule it and all that good stuff. So I would say the hardest part is always going to be coming up with the content. That part, I can't really give advice on, but I think what's really important from a marketing perspective is just putting forth your brand in a professional light. So, what's going to be really important is having really good product photos and having a professional website. I think is going to speak most as, a small business. Like, obviously, we can't compete with these big companies with these big, lavish websites that have
Right.
all the glitz and glamour. Most of the time, small businesses are one man team. But I do think consumers look at that as a
Mhm.
sign of professionalism. So I do think it's really important to put forth easy to browse website, visually appealing website, and then product photos when you're marketing it through social media are important. If they look professional, that's going to encourage people to want to go to your website in the first place. So I think, yeah, those are the two most important parts to have a really good website, whether you kind of learn how to do that on your own
Mhm.
or even explore getting someone else to create it for you if you don't have that experience can really go a long way.
I love your product photos. I think you
Thank
do a
you.
really good job like staging everything. Do you have any tips to take a good product photo?
For some reason, I feel like corners of your housework. I know people can buy like staging backgrounds for their
Mhm.
product photos, and that I think can work really well. But for me, I just find kind of like a corner in my house that has like a good background. Lighting is important too. I think natural light is typically what works best. So I find a good corner. I put some things in the background. Like in almost all my photos, I have these two mini versions of Roman pillars because that kind of adds back to my branding story when in Aroma. So those are kind of always in the background of my photos. And then sometimes I'll even put, I mean, this works for candles, but like a description of the scent in physical form. So like strawberry watermelon, that scent, for example, I have strawberries and watermelon in the background of the photo. And yeah, I think that really works, especially for candles to get people to visualize or feel what the scent will be without being able to smell it in person, which is
Mhm.
kind of a big challenge sometimes of selling online with candles. They can't smell it in person. So if you put those elements in the picture, that helps them better interpret what the scent might be like.
That is a great idea.
Yeah.
That's really smart. So going back to the name of your shop, When in Aroma, how did you think of that? I love that. It's such a cute name for a candle shop.
Thanks. I get compliments on it all the time. Even when people, at craft shows, they'll walk by and see my name and they're like, "Oh, that's clever." And
That was me. I
yeah,
remember
no,
when we met. I was like, "Oh, that's so cute."
yeah, and I think it does get people to stop by if they wouldn't have already because they're like, "Oh, that's super clever. Let me, explore it a little bit more." I don't even honestly remember how I came up with it. I think I was trying to come up with a name for my business. I knew I was going to do the candles, and I was thinking what in my life relates to something I can make into a candle business name. So I had studied abroad when I was in college and I studied in London, but I did visit Rome. So I think I was just thinking through different European things. There was a time where I was going to go with all my scents being like European themed. I forget what I was going to do, but like something like a river candle and make it like a day on the Seine, which is in Paris, the river that runs through Paris, but that became too narrowing for it. But anyways, so I was thinking of Rome, and obviously when in Rome is a very classic saying, so
Yeah.
that came to my head. And then also just all the different scents that could relate to candles. So aroma. And then I don't know, I put two and two together and I was like, that's it. Like I
Yeah.
had a list of different ones that I was deciding between, and everyone I asked, they were like, when in aroma. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one. That's the one.
Yeah, it's super cute.
Thank you.
Did you design your logo yourself? So your logo is like a pillar, like a column with a little flame on top of it, which goes so good with the name and the branding and everything. Did you design that yourself?
I did not. One of the perks, though, of being in the marketing industry is I know a lot of graphic designers that I've worked
Mhm.
with in the past. So, one of my old coworkers, I asked him to come up with a couple designs for me, and that was one of them. And absolutely loved that one. Perfect little mark because I can use that. Like you said, the pillars with the flame, I can use that outside of just having my When in Aroma name. That can be a standalone element that alludes to my business without actually saying When in Aroma.
Mm.
But yeah, and another perk of it, he actually did it for me for free. because we're friends. I gave him a few candles out of it though. So of
Yeah,
course,
nice.
I get some free candles for a logo, and it's an amazing logo. I use it all the time. And he designed my labels as well.
Now, that's a great deal.
Yeah, right.
You said you use Shopify. How do you like that so far?
I really like it. I had used it before at a prior job, so super easy for me to just go in there and do what I need to do. But overall, like I think it's very organized. Everything you need, it's super easy to go there, and it's just very user friendly. I don't think I've really explored any other sites. I just knew immediately that was the one I wanted to use.
I wanted to ask you too. I saw that you on your website have like your refund policy spelled out on your website. That's something I think a lot of people don't realize how important that is.
Oh, yeah.
How did you come up with the wording for that? And have you ever had to use that with customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly don't remember what it completely says because I haven't had to use it too
Mhm.
much with customers, which I'm a little bit shocked about because I expected to have to deal with that a lot more than I do, especially because with candles, super subjective. You could think you like something based on the description online, but when you get it in person, it could be completely different. So I was expecting people to not be happy with the scent that they got, but I actually haven't gotten many inquiries about that at all.
That's great.
Most of my customer service issues are on Etsy, just because those are typically a lot more people that I don't know at all.
Mhm.
Whereas on my website is a lot of people that I already know or have been buying from me for several times now, or I met at a market or something. Where did I find the terminology for that? I don't even know. I honestly feel like it was kind of just one of those, recommended templates
Yeah, that's what
that
I
sh-
did too.
that Shopify might use, and then I just edited it for what I
Mhm.
needed it to be.
That's what I did too on Etsy. They have like a
Yeah.
recommended, like say this, and you
Yep.
can click like, okay, add this, add this, add this.
Yeah, which does make it easy, and it probably helps small businesses who might not think of like adding these stipulations. Probably one of the biggest customer service issues I've had on Etsy was during the holidays of 2020 when the shipping was so backed up.
Yeah.
I had to say, like, because people were reaching out to me like super early after it was shipped and saying like it looks lost, like what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. I was stressed about it every time I got an inquiry about
Yeah.
it. And I had to say, okay, I'll submit like a missing package claim with the USPS or something. But I had to add to my site, like, shipping is crazy right now. If something doesn't arrive in 2 weeks, then you can maybe reach out to me. But
Yeah.
actually, all of my packages got delivered eventually.
Good.
One of them, I think, took like a month. And I think that person, I actually sent them a new package before that month hit, so he ended up getting 2. But
Mhm.
he ended up being really, really happy with my customer service, so it worked out anyways, and he bought from me again in the future.
Yeah, it's really important to have that spelled out. And that's one
Yep.
thing I remember reading about and thinking, oh, I would have never thought of that starting a small business. But it's like, if you don't have it in writing, then,
Yeah.
you can't go back and say, well, it's right here in my policies, if there's ever a problem with something.
Yeah. And especially, like, if Etsy would have to get involved, then they can go back to your policies and see, okay, you did say this.
Are you in any brick and mortar stores too?
I'm in, I think, technically 2. It hasn't been something I focused on a whole lot so far. I do want to try to do a little bit more of that now. But yeah, there's one up in Conshohocken. That's a store that's completely for small business makers. It's one of those situations where you like pay a monthly rent and then
Mhm.
like 10% of your sales. And then I'm in a flower shop down here in Maryland. That was one of the ones when I just kind of walked in and it was almost like a cold call. I presented some of my candles for the owner to smell and the scent list, and she placed an order on the spot for like 20 candles, which was a really cool moment for me.
Yeah.
She had no idea I was walking in there. I just kind of said, "Hey, I just moved to the area. I'm a small business. I make these candles." What was funny about that is she saw my car outside and she was like, "Oh, you live in Tolchester, don't you?" And I was like, "How do you know that?" Turns out she recognized my car because she lives right across from me.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
What are the chances?
I know. I mean, it's a kind of a small town, so it makes sense, but also just crazy. And when her order was ready, she literally just picked it up off my porch. Like,
That's cool.
yeah. But so I want to do some more of that. That one cold call kind of gave me the confidence to keep doing that.
So I know you recently moved to Maryland. Has it been tricky to figure out what makers markets are good in your new location?
Yeah, it really has. Where I moved is kind of a bit more rural than up in
Mm.
Pennsylvania where we were. And like the markets now, since moving, I have to be more selective about because of the drive time,
Oh, yeah.
right? So I can't try as many markets as I probably would have if I was still living up there in PA because, the drive time,
Mhm.
if it ends up being a flop, like not only is it my time, but the drive time and the gas money. So I've had to like think about, do I want to try to focus more on online sales versus
Mhm.
in market sales? And maybe that just becomes my thing where I do just a few markets because I usually have like my parents help and my boyfriend
Mhm.
now help.
Yeah,
But
Kevin
then I
helps
feel
me.
bad for them if it's slow and we're just sitting there. And
Right.
I mean, it's always fun to like go get food or something. That part of it is fun, or see the other makers, walk around to
Mhm.
the other makers. But
Now, are you close to Baltimore or not really?
no, well,
Okay.
physically I am. So I'm like right across from it, but over the bay, over the
Okay.
Chesapeake Bay. But to get there, it would take like 2 hours because I have to
Oh,
go
wow.
down to the Bay Bridge, over the Bay Bridge, and back up.
Oh, okay. So then that might not be.
But like physically, I'm only 16 miles away across the bay.
That's
Like across
crazy.
the bay. It is
Get
crazy. Yeah.
get a little boat and like boat over.
Hmm. Yeah, we've talked about doing that. But no, yeah, because I know there are like a lot near there, or the
Mhm.
Frederick, Maryland. I've seen a couple, but yeah, that would be kind of far
Yeah. Yeah, that would be far.
for like trying a new event too.
Mhm.
Like obviously coming back to York and Lancaster is like 2.5 hours, but so that's
But you know
technically
what to
longer, but
expect.
I
Yeah.
know what to expect.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can't try new things that are up there. I can
Mhm.
try new things here, but anywhere else it's just like too risky.
Yeah.
So I haven't found really yet any makers markets like where it is strictly for makers markets. Like we
Yep.
have whatever Creatively Lancaster and The Find, which
Yeah.
all they do are makers markets. Down here, I haven't really found that yet. So it's been more so like a business will host maybe a yearly, market.
Mhm.
So I did one at a place called Fresh Start, which is fresh produce, a really cool little market. And they just had it kind of in their parking lot. It was, 20 vendors or so. It was a really hot day.
Oh.
But yeah, so just little things like that so far. I've only tried really two so far. Another one
Mhm.
was at a winery, which was cool because,
Yeah.
I could sit there, drink wine. That was awesome. But it was definitely a lower turnout because people came for the winery, not the market.
Okay.
So I might get a few sales there on the side, whereas all of our normal kind of makers markets, people came for the market specifically.
Mhm.
We're ready to buy all that good stuff. But there is in the fall a big fall fest in the one town, which I think will get good turnout. And they do advertise that they have, small business makers there. So I'm interested to try that. But overall, it has been a lot different.
Mm.
Just exploring a new area. I mean, the opportunities are there, which is the exciting part, but has been very challenging. And honestly, I still drive back up to PA for some of the bigger markets because I would miss doing them otherwise.
Yeah. Did you have to get a new license for being down in Maryland?
I had to register for Maryland sales tax.
Okay.
That's all I did. So technically, I still pay both PA and Maryland
Mhm.
sales tax. I talked about it with my accountant, and honestly, just re-registering for a new state and canceling the old registration in Pennsylvania would kind of be a headache, especially because I don't know how long I'm staying down here. There is a possibility I would eventually move back to PA.
Hmm.
So, with just that being kind of up in the air, it just didn't feel worth it to go through that whole process just to potentially have to revert back to Pennsylvania anyways. So basically just what I'm doing now is paying both Pennsylvania and Maryland sales tax. And I think that covers me.
I know you said your last show was really hot. Do you have issues with your products due to the heat, or do you try to avoid shows at certain times a year because of the heat?
Definitely. So I've learned over the last 2 years that I try to stay away from summer markets because of A, the heat, but also B, summer isn't always candle season for people. People really like the candles in the fall and winter. That's more so the season for candles. So even if I would, risk it going to a hot market, it might not be worth it to me for sales. So that most recent market, that was actually in May, but it was like a 90-degree day and I was under a canopy. Like usually I'm worried about when my candles are hit by direct sunlight because that definitely melts them, but they weren't in direct sunlight and they were still melting just because the humidity was so bad in the 90s that day. And the candles will be fine. They'll harden back up later. It just gives me anxiety for whatever reason because they won't look as pretty on top. They won't look as appealing if someone opens it up to smell and it's melting. For those reasons, I try to avoid summer markets as much as I can, which is a shame because I think people want to go to markets in the summer. That's a time where it's fun to go outside because it's nice weather. It's just a shame, but it's something I deal with. And it kind of gives me summer off, to do my own thing and take a little bit of a break from the business.
Where do you get your inspiration for your different scents?
I kind of take it season by season. And a few months before that season starts, I start to think about what my scent mix will be. A big thing of it is just having a mix, a variety of scents to appeal to different, I call them scent palettes, like a taste palette, but it's a scent palette because everyone has a different one. It's really cool just how different people's noses can appreciate different scents. So I try to have a variety of, sweet, throw in floral every now and then, spicy, and then also kind of earthy masculine scents as well. Try to have a mix of those. From there, it's honestly just about getting a bunch of different samples. You should see, I have hundreds, probably hundreds of little 1-ounce sample bottles of different scents from various different companies. So it's just about trying them and seeing what kind of sparks my interest. And then I have, my boyfriend sample it too. My natural scent palette is more sweeter, on the sweeter side, sweeter, fruity. And his natural scent palette is more on the earthy, masculine, floral side. So that has been super helpful to me lately in just spot checking my nose. I think I've gotten better at picking the good earthy scents over these last 2 years and just constantly smelling different scents, right? But he helps to balance me. So if I think something's good from an earthy perspective, I'll have him try it and he'll either say too sweet or nah, don't really like that. And that's kind of where I know how to pull that back. So it's honestly just testing what's out there, deciding whether, do I like this straight out of the bottle, that scent, or do I want to try to mix 2 different scents or 3 different scents to make something that I'm going for. And like I said, it kind of starts with each season. I take it a season at a time and prepare for the upcoming season and look at what I already have, see what am I missing? What kind of scent am I missing that I can add to it?
Do you bring back the same scents every season, or do you try to mix it up?
So far, I've brought every scent back. And I've been kind of like playing with this in my head a lot recently because at what point do I have too many scents to pick from, right? What I've wanted to do is to not bring back the scents that didn't sell as well. I have like a register of how many of each I've sold, and there's definitely clear winners, clear best sellers, but at the same time, I don't want to get rid of the other ones because there are some people who love that scent, right? It's just not the majority of people. So I would hate to get rid of it if there is someone out there who really loves it and would continue to buy it. So I've kind of just brought every scent back, and maybe I don't bring that scent to shows. Maybe I just have it available online because, it doesn't hurt for me to go buy the fragrance and make it for the 1 or 2 people who want it. It doesn't hurt. So I've just kind of kept it the same.
When do you start putting your holiday scents out? Do you have like a time frame?
So the holidays to me starts with fall because fall is a big candle season. So lately I've been putting those scents out in August. To some people it's super early, but the fall people, they are die hard. The fall Halloween people, if you know the type, they would have fall all year round if they could. By the time it hits end of August, they're already ready for it. Even though it's like still hot outside, they don't care. They're ready for spooky season. So I've been releasing those kind of end of August. And then from there, so that's the fall. And then when it comes to like the winters, holidays, Christmas, I think beginning of November is when I start to release those. Feels like it's earlier and earlier every year. People are ready for it sooner. And I mean, I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
Do you do anything different to prepare for the holidays?
I guess I would also say lately I've been trying to, besides just the new scents, find new products in general. I don't know if I should give a spoiler. Well,
Ooh,
I'll
give
give
a
a
spoiler.
spoiler. So for the fall, I found these jars that are in the shape of a skull, and I can fill them with a candle. I think they're gonna sell super well because last year I had wax melters in the shape of a skull. I only had like 20 of them available, and they were gone within like a week or two. So I'm super excited to not only change up the scents that I do in the holidays, but introduce new products that I think people are going to go crazy for, like a candle shaped in a skull.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I bought those in, I want to say like March. Just because also I know things go out of stock. Like if you wait too
Oh, yeah.
long, like I said, those scalp melters, they were out of stock. By the time I wanted to order more because they sold so well, that was already fall season and they were out of stock. So you have to kind of plan super far in advance for things like that just because they go out of stock early if they're, really cool products like that.
It's the same with fabric because you have to start looking for like Christmas fabric because it goes out of stock.
Another thing I have to think about in preparation for the holidays, which is an obstacle I never really realized that I would have to face, is just my regular jars that I use going out of stock, not being able to find them anywhere. That happened to me, I think, in 2020. So I originally only had 3 sizes. It was a 4-ounce, a 7-ounce, and an 11-ounce. And then probably halfway through the holidays, halfway through the fall season, I ran out of the 11-ounce jars and they were out of stock everywhere.
Wow.
Not back until January of the next year. I was like, this is my busiest season. What am I going to do? So that's when I added my 4th size, the 15-ounce size, because I needed that bigger option for people. And yeah, 11-ounce was out of stock everywhere. And and that was my first year in business. I never thought I'd have to pivot so quickly and find a different option and deal with the supply chain. It was 2020 and we know how crazy it was for every industry. But I do think it hit like the candle and jarring industry really hard. Also because during COVID, people started to get into the hobby of like pickling things and using jars for jarred goods. That was not a fun time, but it was a good learning experience. And one of those things that just never thought I'd have to deal with supply chain.
You have a candle called Grandma's Christmas Cookies. And I saw on your website you also have a blog recipe for Grandma's Christmas Cookies, which was snickerdoodles.
Yes.
Do you have personal memories that inspired that candle scent?
For sure. So my grandma, she loves snickerdoodle cookies. And so she makes them every year as one of her Christmas cookies. So when I found that scent as an option, I knew immediately I had the perfect name for it, Grandma's Christmas Cookies. So I could kind of pay homage to my grandma and, name a scent after her. And yeah, so that was fun.
Oh, that's cool. She was probably so excited.
Yeah. I named a candle after your grandma. Then of course that has to be like a staple I have to give her every year, one
right.
of her own candles.
Well, she gives you cookies, so it's only fair, right?
Yes. For everyone who bought one of those candles, I included the recipe in their bag or their box.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. Thought it was a cute little touch.
I saw you posted that you love doing custom wedding favors. How do you get your customers for that?
So it actually really started with just doing one for a friend. In 2020, they had their wedding and they knew I did candles and they actually came to me and asked about doing favors. And it was kind of something I never even thought of at the time. And so it started off with them. And then after I posted that, the first kind of image that I did of favors like that, I immediately got like several requests right after.
Mhm.
So just by kind of posting it, people have become aware that, hey, these are really cool custom made favors. I can customize everything, from the scent to the label, what the label says. My favorite one that people have done is when they have two different scents and they call it, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith, for example. So each candle, they can pick their own scent, and then it's just a cute little favor. It's custom and small business, which is awesome.
So can they make scents that you don't even offer as one of your candle options? Like, are you able to work with people like that?
I did for the first wedding I did, but so far everyone just, picks one from my site. I have a good mix that they're
Yeah.
able to find one that they like and can agree on.
Yeah,
So,
you
but
you do have a good mix. I know I have several.
yes.
Yeah, I have them down in my sewing room and oh my gosh, they smell so
Oh,
good.
love that.
Tell me about your wax melt subscriptions. How does that work?
Yeah, so I think about a year and a half ago, I was trying to see how I could get into the subscription game. That sounded fun. And like I said, I have hundreds of little sample scents that I can only pick several of them for my main line of candles. But I have all these other scents that it would be fun, if someone's really into wax melts and they use a lot of them, it'd be fun every month to get a different scent that they
Hmm.
can't just buy online, and it'd be kind of like a mystery what scent they're going to get each month. So, yeah, subscribers can sign up and get a different scent delivered to them every month.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun for me just picking out what scent to do next each month and
Hmm.
preparing for that.
Have you ever done any giveaways?
Yes, back when I first got it started, I did a few giveaways, and I've been wanting to do another one soon. Like, I was just thinking about doing it the other day,
Hmm.
actually. But what I've tried to do is do cool things to give away. So I have this pumpkin jar that I use for candles in the fall. So I gave that away. That was my first ever giveaway. And so that did really well.
Hmm.
And then I did like a kind of surprise giveaway of it was like a cauldron filled with a candle, which was a unique, like I don't make any of those. I just made that one. But yeah, I want to do another one soon.
Hmm.
I think I need to start growing my following a bit more.
Do you do other social media? Do you have TikTok or anything like that? Or you just do Instagram?
I have TikTok, yes. That's been a very new development for
Hmm.
me, just learning how to make videos. I swear I still spend like an hour on each
Hmm.
video trying just editing it.
Yeah.
I've been trying to do that a bit more. I've been I don't know if this is the best practice, but whatever I put on TikTok, I also put on Instagram.
Hmm.
And it's so interesting to see how different videos get more traction on
Yeah.
one platform versus the other.
Yeah, it is. What do you like most about running a small business?
I think definitely in the beginning, it was just such a confidence boost that I could pull something like that off. I never really wanted to have a small business. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was never something I expected for myself. But the learning process of everything I've went through and had to teach myself and develop these skills I didn't have before, I'm just so proud of myself. And that was
Hmm.
kind of, for me, definitely in the first year, the best feeling. And I mean, still to this day, I love getting compliments from people. Like, they love my candles. They think I do a great job. They love my name. They love my branding. So to me, it's like that, getting those compliments back about, hey, what you're doing is really great. And we love it so much. We want to tell you about it. That goes with like getting reviews online of people I don't even know, right? On Etsy or whatever. Someone will give me like a paragraph long review of just the sweetest things, like whether I was just super helpful in customer service with them, whether my product's really good, fast shipping, all that stuff. Like, just the confidence boost of it makes me feel really good.
I know it is cool. It is something to be proud of for sure. You do have all those thoughts when you first start, like, oh my gosh, can I do this? And how do you do
Yeah.
this? And then you just get out there and meet people and, just keep plugging along.
Yeah. And that is one of my favorite parts about the markets too, like meeting people in person, getting that feedback in person. It's
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Do you know people down there, other makers in Maryland, or have you made new connections at your new markets?
A few. Still kind of getting used to it. I've only done those two markets, but
Hmm.
more so I know people from the that own like the small physical businesses.
Okay.
like the fresh start that I talked about. Became really good friends with the kind of managers there. But as far as small businesses, not too many yet.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten to know you over multiple markets that we've done together.
Right.
And so far down here, I've only really done 2. So I've only met these people like once or twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do hope to build those relationships going
Yeah.
forward.
One thing I do to find new markets is I see what other makers around me are doing, like who sort of lives close to me, you know. So when I start
Yeah.
following people, I'll go on their websites and see like, okay, they're doing this, and this market. And then
Yeah.
I'll sort of go to the market webpage and then see like, oh, okay, this looks promising, or I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like that's how I've found several up there as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is nearing the end of the podcast, so it is time for a random fact. Do you have your random fact for me?
Yes, I do. I was doing so much research for this. I wanted to find the coolest fact about candles. So, what I found was, you know how candles have been around for, forever. Back in the
Mm-hmm.
old times, they used them for light. Well, back then they weren't scented. So, the first scented candles were created after the invention of the light bulb because the light bulb obviously produced light, and so they didn't need candles to produce light anymore, and the light bulb probably way better at producing light than a little candle. So then at that point they started to create scented candles because they viewed them as more of a decorative item instead of a functional item. So whenever the light bulb was created, that's when scented candles came into the mix.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Sure, yeah.
I am just loving like hearing all these facts from people, like everything that people come up with. That's like my favorite part of the whole podcast. Is
I
hearing
was trying to find a fact about how many candles are burned each year. I couldn't find it. The closest I got was that 1 billion pounds of wax are used, or over 1 billion pounds of wax are used every year in the US to make
Wow.
candles, which is such a big number, I can't even fathom it.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
also, that wasn't as cool of a fact, I think.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I don't know. Usually I say, well, I'll see you at the next show, but
Yeah,
you
well, thank
moved.
you. I know. Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. Always love talking to you. And I know I'll see you one day at one of these upcoming
Yes.
markets. So thank you
Definitely.
so much for taking the
Yeah.
time and interviewing me.
Talk to you later. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Handmade with Heart podcast. Don't forget to follow Shelby at In Aroma, and you can find me at Scrappy Stitch and the Handmade with Heart podcast.